What is going on, Colts Nation? Welcome back to another episode of Bring the Juice, your guys. Cody and Derek back for another one, guys. Hey, we are doing Mock Draft 3.0, my version this time. But before we jump into that, want to let you know that this episode is presented by Prize Picks. Be sure to visit prizepicks.com or their app and use the code BTJ to earn a $100 deposit match when you sign up. Be sure to do that, guys. But now let's jump into my mock draft 3.0, Derek. And obviously, like you mentioned at the beginning of your mock draft, we are doing the same trade down scenario. So in this scenario, Derek, we had the Indianapolis Colts trading down to pick 24, right? And acquiring another second round pick as well here in this draft. And so that makes a lot of sense for the Indianapolis Colts. I think, Derek, I don't know what your thoughts are, but I think that makes a lot of sense, kind of that range for the Colts to, still kind of be in play for a couple of these players, but also still, be able to acquire more draft capital as well. So with that being said, with the 24th overall pick, I have the Indianapolis Colts actually taking the other Texas wide receiver, Adonai Mitchell, wide receiver from Texas. I mean, Derek, what can you say about Mitchell? I mean, he's just a physical freak, Derek. I mean, he's just a guy that, has the size, the speed. He's having everything that you look for in a wide receiver. And I just personally think it's a great fit. I know, obviously, the Colts had Xavier Worthy on a visit here, and he's obviously one of the favorite guys. But, Derek, I just think overall, when you look at Mitchell, you look at the size, you look at the athleticism. Obviously, he doesn't quite have the speed of Xavier Worthy. But Derek, I just think he's personally just more of an all-around player. I think he's personally a better player at this point for the Indianapolis Colts, and he was here and he was available. And so for me, I think that made a lot of sense for the Colts to go Mitchell in this situation. And he's a little bit bigger too. And I think that makes a lot of sense for Indianapolis. Still searching for that true number two outside receiver. So what are your thoughts here on my first pick, Adonai Mitchell out of Texas?
No doubt a extremely explosive wide receiver, that's for sure. When everyone was looking at his combine day, he just wowed people with a lot of different things. That 40 time, his vertical and his broad jump, all stuff that's in the 90 percentile. So no doubt on the kind of athlete that he is. Weight and arm length, not too bad. Height is a pretty good height as well, 6'2". There's a lot of great things to like about Adonai Mitchell. The only thing is, the only critique I would have on him, and it's something I was saying I was kind of out on him with, was just some of the reports I was hearing about how I'm one of those people that's a little bit skeptic on when people say that they have a poor work ethic. But I have seen a couple people show the clips, and I've seen a few times, especially when it comes to the blocking and whatnot. That can end up being a little bit of a scary thing for me because, that's one thing that the Colts have always embedded in their wide receivers is giving maximum effort on every play and being the guy that's willing to do the dirty work. Is Mitchell willing to do the dirty work? If he's willing to do so, then there's not much of more of a wide receiver you could ask for to fit right into a offense like this than Adonai Mitchell. So, hey, I'm willing to accept it. If he's willing to do the dirty work, then I think this is about as good as it can get for you.
Yeah, and I was just looking at, for me, honestly, the upside, I think, is just so high with him. And I think like he said, if the Colts deem that is false, right? And they've obviously done a lot of homework on him. So if they deem that is false, I do think Derek, he has some of the best potential if he puts it all together. And if he is committed, some of the best potential in this draft. I truly believe he has that. So for that reason, that's why I went with him. And also, I know you took Xavier Worthy, so I kind of was like, I'll change it up a little bit. I'll go his counterpart there in Mitchell at pick 24 for Indianapolis. All right. Now we'll move on to pick 46. And Derek, this is actually where we kind of intertwine here. I have Max Melton as well, just because he was sitting there around where I was picking there in round number 2, the original pick, of course, pick 46 for Indianapolis. He's got the size, He's got the athleticism. He's got the speed, certainly, as well. He's very flexible as a corner. I think it just makes a whole lot of sense for a guy like him. And I think he can get a little bit bigger, a little bit stronger as well, kind of build into that frame a little bit more. But I think overall, Max Melton is a great fit here for this Indianapolis secondary. So obviously, you talked about him before, but just give me your thoughts on him again.
Yeah, definitely a guy that's a great combination of a bunch of different things. I really like Max Melton. He's not really like elite at anything, but he's really good at a lot of things. And I think he can work with that. He's got a great charisma around him. And I think that he can really compete for that second outside cornerback spot in the summer if he ends up getting drafted by Indianapolis. So I like that pick at 46.
All right, awesome. All right, so moving on now to obviously the second pick for the Colts here in the second round with that trade down. Derek, this might surprise you, but when I was talking with Alex from Hail Mary Sports, he sold me on a player, and specifically that I believe is, even though he's a small school player, I think he has a lot of potential here. And so that's why in round number 2, pick number 56, I have the Indianapolis Colts taking Marshawn Kneeland, the edge out of Western Michigan. Now, Derek, Marshawn Kneeland, he's 6'3", 270 pounds, RAS score of 9.08. He's got a great frame. He's very explosive as a player. He's got a lot of natural things, Derek, that I think you really like. Now, obviously, the question marks are on obviously the level of play that he went against and things like that. He's got a huge motor, though, very explosive. So I think he's just got a lot of overall good stuff, Derek. And I think there are things that he can build on, but I do think Kneeland would be a great pick here for the Colts in round number 2. And I know that might be a little surprising for people. So you and I both have a little bit of surprises. But, Derek, it still is a need. We've talked about edge being a need. And, I mean, the fact that the Colts paid Danielle Hunter, or potentially were willing to pay Danielle Hunter what they were, tells me that they understand the edge is not fully figured out for them. Like, they still are looking to add some pieces to this room. And so I say, hey, give a guy like Kneeland to Charlie Partridge and let him work with him and let him develop him and let him kind of build into that frame that is Marshawn Kneeland. So for me, Derek, that pick makes sense for the Colts. What are your thoughts there on Marshawn Kneeland?
That's an interesting one for sure. I just look at like his draft profile, and based on NFLDraftBuzz.com, he's the 7th ranked defensive end in this draft class. And a lot of people have him projected as a 3rd rounder. So, maybe a little early. Again, like you said, in mine, I had Cole Bishop, which is definitely early for his spot, but it's one of those where the Colts feel like they could get someone else at 81 but feel like this guy would be gone by then, and they're willing to take that risk. I will say this, his agility and his lateral quickness is really good. His shuttle and 3-cone were up in the 80 percentiles. So, that's really good. Has solid explosiveness, but overall, as far as like an overall height and weight perspective, it's not too terrible. The only thing that really has going for him is he's got a really good arm span, which is in the 90 percentile. So that's, something that can be worked with Charlie Partridge and whatnot. He's an overall good tackler, overall solid pass rusher. Overall, he's a really good run defender. That'll definitely be very interesting. Like you said, definitely high. But hey, listen, if Indy acquires an additional pick and they're willing to take the jump on it, then who am I to say, when it comes to that pick? I probably would have gone somewhere else in that regard. But again, it just all depends on whether or not they think that there's something that they can see with him going forward.
All right. So now let's move to the 3rd round for the Indianapolis Colts, and I have them taking a guy that we're very familiar with, Jaden Hicks out of Washington State, Derek. Now, obviously, Hicks is a very, very good athlete, really big safety as well. He's 6'3", over 200 pounds. And Derek, I think he's just one of those guys that, to quote Chris Ballard, you can feel him, right? He's just a type of guy that he's just a menacing presence back there. And obviously, we haven't addressed safety yet. And I was sitting here, in round 3, like this would make a lot of sense for Indianapolis to go and get him here and to make it happen. So for me, I had Jaden Hicks sitting here, and he was available. Some other guys weren't available for the Indianapolis Colts. And so that is why I had the Colts going and getting him here when it came to pick number 82 here. So I don't know what your thoughts are on that, but I had Jaden Hicks here.
Yeah, I mean, he's actually in some places is above Cole Bishop in regards to overall effectiveness and safety. Like you said, his measurables are insane. Obviously 6'2", 210 pounds. He's a big dude. 40 time is solid. Vertical jump is really good. 3 cones, really good. Overall, okay. Average strength and arm, an average broad and arm span. I think the only thing that is a little bit concerning is the shuttle drill. Was not very great in the shuttle drill, which it makes you concerned about his quickness from side to side. That's something that will definitely need to be worked on. But overall, a solid player in pretty much every category. So I'm not opposed to this pick at all. I like Jaden Hicks and what he can be. As we said, guys, today's episode is sponsored by Prize Picks. Now, what is Prize Picks? Prize Picks is the largest daily fantasy sports platform in North America. Instead of battling against thousands of other players across platforms, you're basically picking 2 to 6 player stat projections, and you're choosing more or less on those stat projections to be able to watch those winnings roll in. It's very easy. Do you guys want to play along at some of Prize Picks' favorite players like rapper Meek Mill and UFC fighter Sugar Sean O'Malley? Well, if you guys sign up today, you can find the community plays under the promos tab of the app to view the entries of some of the biggest names on the platform and be a part of that as well. You can now win up to 100 times your money on Prize Picks with as little as 4 correct picks. You could turn $10 into $1,000 just like that with NBA, NHL, and college basketball entries today on Prize Picks, America's #1 fantasy sports app. Like a lot of other things, guys, they also offer injury insurance, so your entries stay in play even if one of your players gets injured. So if someone exits the game in the first half and does not return in the second, that player projection won't count against you and the rest of your entry stays live. So it's great bounce back for that one. What I love about the app as well, guys, is it's not just sports like NBA, NHL, football, and tennis, and baseball, and all these other things, but there's also a lot of others that go into it as well. If you like to place entries on video game situations like Call of Duty, CS2, Apex, if that's something that appeals to you, there's a wide variety of sports and video games and everything else that you can place entries on. And I love how expansive it is. Even just looking at the NBA, there's entries you can make with turnovers, with points. You can do combo deals, dunks, field goals attempted, all these different things. So there's just so many different ways to make money off of these entries. Be sure to download the app today and use code BTJ for a first deposit match up to $100. Again, download the app today and use code BTJ for a first deposit match up to $100. Again, it's sponsored by Prize Picks. Pick more, pick less. It's that easy.
All right, cool. So pick 117 at the Indianapolis Colts, addressing their offensive line, similar to you, Derek. I have him taking Mason McCormick, offensive guard, and he's a guy that's got a very, very favorable RAS score, nearly a 10 RAS score, 9.96. He's got good size for a guard. He could probably put on a few more pounds, but still 6'4", 310. And again, we've talked about the competition at guard, adding some depth in there. So to me, McCormick was sitting there, and I was like, he's the best offensive lineman still available. So I know the Colts are probably looking to add some sort of depth there. So I decided that I was going to go that route for the Indianapolis Colts. So, what are your thoughts here on a player like McCormick?
I actually really like it. Even when I was looking at offensive linemen in mine, McCormick was a guy that I really was high on because, like you said, he's got decent size. But I mean, what do we always look at when Indy's starting to look at their offensive linemen, right? And that's are they athletic enough to basically be able to run the kind of offense that they're looking to install, which is a zone run offensive line that can move around because they move their guards a lot. And McCormick definitely is that guy. He's got a great RAS score. He's a great athlete. Has a good size for and good feel for the position. So yeah, I was debating between him and Coleman when I was doing mine. So I like that pick. I really do.
All right, let's continue here. At pick 151, I have the Indianapolis Colts. Ironically enough, I know, Derek, we talked about running back, but I have the Colts taking a running back here. I have them taking Isaac Girondo. Sorry, I messed that up, out of Louisville. 6 foot, 221, another RAS king, 9.9 RAS score here for him, Derek. And I think that one makes sense for Indianapolis overall. I mean, you need a running back, and I think this is about the spot I'm looking for when it comes to running back and really addressing it in any capacity. And I think that would make a lot of sense for the Indianapolis Colts in this scenario to go and get their running back here. And so, what are your thoughts here on him just adding into that backfield for Indianapolis?
If you're wanting a running back and you're wanting an athletic one, I mean, my goodness, you don't really have to look much further than this guy right here. Honestly, might be the most athletic running back that's in the entire draft class, to be honest with you. Really fantastic stuff here. He's a dual role kind of guy. Ran a 4.33 40 time, which is in the 98th percentile. 6 foot, 220 pounds. Arms and hands, not that great. Span is okay. Shuttle, 10-yard, three cone, all pretty good. Obviously, where he excels in the 90 percentiles is the 40 time and then his explosiveness. Had a 41 and a half inch vert and an insanely long broad jump. I mean, just talk about like an athletic freak that this guy is. Can really run the ball well, does a great job of breaking tackles. You know, obviously, when you mix that size and that speed together, that is definitely a very solid choice. Is actually a relatively solid wide receiver, too, out of the backfield, which is something you could always use out of your second running back. Obviously, not a good pass blocker or run blocker. That is not his cup of tea. But no doubt, if Indy is wanting to stick close to their motto of trying to get an athletic guy as their number 2 option at running back, this might be the guy to do it. 810 yards last season, averaged over 6 yards a carry, had 11 rushing touchdowns, averaged 11, almost 11 yards per catch as well. So the guy's productive. He's athletic. That could be definitely a player that I would definitely see Indy going for late in the draft.
Okay, perfect. All right, let's move on, Derek, to round 6, pick 191. I have the Indianapolis Colts going back to wide receiver. I have them taking a wide receiver out of a small school, Southeast Missouri State. This is Ryan Flournoy. Small school guy, like I mentioned, Derek, but he has a lot of athletic traits that you really like in a wide receiver. He's got the size, Derek. He's got the speed. He's got the explosiveness. And obviously, he's a Senior Bowl guy as well, which definitely bodes well for him. And so I think that makes a lot of sense for me, Derek, when looking at another wide receiver for the Indianapolis Colts here in the later rounds. I think he just makes a ton of sense there. And again, we know how much Chris Ballard likes his, small school guys. And again, this guy, nearly a 9.9 RAS score. So again, another athletic guy that I think makes too much sense for Indianapolis. I want to say shout out to Zach Hicks. This was one of his guys in the later rounds. But Derek, I looked at that and I said, hey, I think the Colts, now that they've addressed offensive line, and originally I had them taking another offensive lineman, but I switched it because I thought it made a lot of sense for the Colts to go back because we know they've talked explosion. And again, he's not a guy that's probably going to contribute, but he can be a special teams guy right away, Derek. And maybe down the road, he can contribute with this team. And we've seen the Indianapolis Colts in the past take chances on small school guys. And so for me, getting a player like him here in round number 6, that'll be a special teams guy right away, potentially could contribute if he can get the most out of his physical traits. And if Reggie Wayne and him can just continue to work together, I think he could develop into a nice player eventually. So what are your thoughts on him?
Yeah, I mean, again, you look for those small school guys late in rounds, and if that's somebody that actually will go out there and do special teams work and put that kind of work in to find a spot on the roster, then I'm not going to complain on it. I'll gladly accept that.
Okay, perfect. And then in the final pick 234 here for the Indianapolis Colts, I have them taking a linebacker. Jackson Mitchell out of UConn. Derek, he's just another guy that's going to help add to that room. Obviously, we know with the loss of Shaq Leonard, you have a need there of some sort. And then this is a guy, Derek, that played a ton in college, a ton of snaps, played a lot of special teams as well. And he's pretty good in coverage as well as a linebacker. And so, Derek, I mean, for me, this gives me a lot of maybe not apples to apples, but Zaire Franklin vibes. A guy here in late round. He had a lot of production in college. He's going to start off in special teams. Now, again, I think he's a little bit different as a player, but kind of a similar story here of a guy that I think eventually, and maybe so, maybe not, but I think he could potentially, challenge for some playing time at some point in his career. But again, that's still a long way off for him. But I thought the Indianapolis Colts could probably use a linebacker here, Derek. And so I wanted to add here and just get another linebacker here that I think in Mitchell can definitely just contribute right away. Now, again, he's not the most athletic guy, so this will definitely be straying away from some of the Chris Ballard mold typically. So I could see Indianapolis not going with him just because when you look at the RAS score, really nothing that stands out. But just a guy that has a lot of production in college, and I think will be more of a special teams pick here later on.
Yeah, I mean, that definitely would be a intriguing one. I would think that there would be a lot other guys that could be more useful in that spot because, like you said, there isn't really much that stands out about him. But 7th round guys, that's where some of the small, minute details come in. Maybe the Colts see something that they think this guy could become one. So. It is what it is. I don't hate it, but I would probably look to go somewhere else than that. Maybe some more offensive line depth, in my personal opinion.
Okay. No, I mean, that makes sense. I thought about going back to that as well, just another offensive lineman. But I don't know. I just settled on linebacker because I feel like it still is slightly in need, but we're not really talking about it a whole lot. And so I just thought I'd round it out with a guy that right away can contribute in some capacity on special teams. But yeah, that'll do it for my mock draft 3.0 with a trade down scenario. So, guys, I'm curious what your thoughts are here on, my mock draft 3.0. Did you like it? Were some picks you're kind of like, I don't know, Cody, maybe you're stretching a little bit. I'd be curious to hear your guys' thoughts on this draft as a whole. Again, guys, a little bit tougher to do this trade down scenario. It definitely changes some things, adds another pick or two. And it definitely, took a little bit longer for us to come away with our drafts. And still, I look at it and I'm like, I probably would have changed that, looking back on it now. But again, guys, let us know your thoughts overall when it comes to the mock draft 3.0. Obviously, check out Derek's as well. And so let us know your thoughts, guys. That'll do it for this one. Thank you so much for tuning in. And as always, guys, go Colts.